It's always a thrill to be in Beijing. What I'd like to do today is spend a little bit of time talking about how digital media is transforming organizations and society, and to talk specifically about how it is changing work in ways that we have never contemplated before. As many of you know, the last 3 years, the emphasis and focus has been on the fourth industrial revolution. So this idea that we are seeing dramatic convergence of multiple technologies, cloud-based computing, sensors, artificial intelligence, social media, and mobile technology. And then you add to that the advances in blockchain. These technologies are coming together and reaching maturity at the same time, and they're affecting our lives in many different ways. We're seeing the convergence of our social lives, our work lives, our personal lives, and even our health and well-being as a result of these technologies being applied across all of them. We're also seeing the convergence of multiple different industries. Every industry today is both digital and global. There is no industry that is not affected by those two forces, whether you are a large global multinational or if you are the grocery store on the corner of the street. You're affected by both of those forces. What is interesting is to look at how this industrial revolution is different from the first three. And there are two things that are different that give us some cause for concern. The first is the speed of change. We are seeing all of these technologies reach maturity at the same time. We as a global society have never seen pace of change of the same magnitude. In the second industrial revolution, we saw the automobile engine, the internal combustion engine, and the light bulb get invented within 20 years of each other. So two truly transformative breakthroughs happening in a short amount of time. But that is nothing compared to what we're seeing now. The second key variable is the existence of social institutions to allow society to adjust. In the second industrial revolution, we had the large old industrial companies in the developed world, the companies like General Motors, Ford, Daimler, that essentially gave us the jobs that we now are used to. They pulled together disparate activities into jobs. Those jobs were connected to form an assembly line. Those jobs were grouped into job families that allowed for career progression, and those jobs gave us the construct of rewards and benefits that we know of today. So industry allowed society to adjust. So we're seeing a void, a significant gap in how we as a global society adjust. 9 of the 10 most in-demand jobs didn't exist 10 years prior. And by some estimates, our children will need to reskill themselves 3 to 4 times over the course of their careers. A little bit older, like myself, Alvin Toffler wrote a book called Future Shock, and he said that it captures the essence of the change we're looking at. I know it's a little bit early in the afternoon for a history lesson, but I think it's informative to look at where we've come from to get a sense of where we're going. I mentioned at the outset that much of what we are used to as it relates to how work is done in companies today came from the second industrial revolution. So we have 125 years of work being done in jobs. And those jobs were created by these large companies. These companies became social institutions. They provided income while people were working, and they provide income continuation in the form of pensions post-employment. In some parts of the world, they also provided healthcare. So you saw the organizations take on a lot of social responsibility. And we got used to the notion of jobs and careers, and in some cases, careers for life. Now, the reason that that existed was because it was the most efficient way in which to get work done, pulling disparate activities into a job and having it done within the company. Now, we move forward to the third industrial revolution, and Nikeification is actually a real word, because Nike was the first company to figure out that it could pull apart supply and manufacturing from marketing and design. And the reason it could do that was because of the rapid advances in information technology that gave Nike transparency to what it would cost, what the quality would be, and what the risks would be of having work done outside of a single location. Now we go forward to the fourth industrial revolution, and you remember those technologies I talked about at the beginning? Well, those technologies are allowing us to deconstruct work, to take those jobs, pull them apart into component activities, and have those different activities done cheaper, faster, better than ever before. Some of the analysis that Willis Towers Watson has shown some of our clients is that they are able to access much better talent by deconstructing jobs. They are able to get to savings of 60 to 80%. I'll contrast that with the savings from outsourcing, which is 30%. And they're able to stand up new capabilities much faster than they ever had before. Today, industry itself is under threat. Every established company is facing challenges from new digitally enabled competitors. Many governments around the world are ill-prepared for what AI is about to do. And many non-governmental institutions, including the educational sector, are not preparing society for this transition. And I think we're seeing that play out as it relates to work itself. In the 21st century, the illiterate of that century will not be those who can't read and write. It will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And so you're seeing a fundamental change in how we think of work, from jobs to deconstructed tasks that then get reconstructed into new types of jobs. And so we're talking about a radical change in how work itself is being done. This is a piece of research that was done by a group of CHROs in North America, and they looked at what are the forces of change that are causing for this radical transformation. And there are 5 forces that I believe many of us can relate to from our personal lives. Social and organizational reconfiguration. Think of how much of our social lives have gone from being in the physical realm, from being limited to the community that we are part of, to increasingly being virtual and covering anyone in the world who is a part of Facebook or WeChat or any social network. And that affects not just our work or our personal lives, but it affects every aspect of how we exist. An all-inclusive global talent market. No longer are we limited to finding talent in our geography or in our town. We can access talent anywhere in the world. Some of you may have heard of the rapidly growing group of talent platforms like Upwork. Upwork has 13 million people on it. It allows organizations to access talent anywhere in the world at the right price. A much more connected world. We are all, whether we like it or not, we're all intricately connected through digital media. Every one of us has a cell phone. Virtually every cell phone has some form of social media access on it. And so every part of our lives is completely transparent, and we're intricately connected to each other. The exponential pattern of technological change. I talked about 9 of the 10 most in-demand jobs not existing 10 years ago. We're seeing that accelerate. AI is accelerating at a much faster pace. We're seeing cloud-based computing enable and allow AI to accelerate the way work is being done. And then the last element of that is human and machine collaboration. All those 5 forces come down to 2 major themes. The first is the democratization of the work. Increasingly, companies are no longer limited, for all the reasons I talked about, limited to thinking of filling a job with people who live close by. Work is being deconstructed, pulled apart, and distributed anywhere in the world to the people who can do it best. Every one of us, as I mentioned, has a cell phone. We're connected to each other with those cell phones, and those cell phones are always on us, right? We never go anywhere without those cell phones. What we found was digital media is the primary way through which people are finding work, through which people are developing their new skills, and through which people are actually doing their work. When you get a moment, go on to any browser and look at Upwork, who I mentioned a second ago, look at Topcoder, look at Tongle, look at bj.com. All of these are online talent marketplaces. And essentially what they do is, like any market, they increase the efficiency with which people selling skills and the buyers of skills can interact. Upwork has 13 million people on it. It has 3,500 different types of work that any company can access talent for. So if you need a software developer, if you need an HR specialist, if you need an accountant, if you even need someone to read x-rays, we're seeing that happen with radiologists on this platform. These are online marketplaces that allow you to get someone to take on that work. There are other more focused and specialized platforms like topcoder.com, where you have 1 million of the world's best data scientists, software developers, and digital talent on that platform. What these platforms are doing is giving companies very real alternatives to going out and hiring talent. And instead of hiring a person to be with an organization for a career, what you're now doing is turning that job into a project. And so it's giving business leaders many more choices. And it's giving talent many more choices as well. The second driver of this change is the technological empowerment. And technological empowerment, whether it is 3D printing, whether it is machine learning, we're seeing the barriers to entry in many different industries come down. I'll give you one example. With a number of global airlines today, in the past, if a plane broke down, an email would be sent to the manufacturer or a text to let them know that the part was broken. The manufacturer would send that part to the airline, or they may need to manufacture the part and ship it. It could take up to 3 weeks before the part came, and during those 3 weeks, the plane is not operational. Today, many global airlines have 3D printers at their facilities around the world. So the minute a part breaks, that part has a sensor in it that lets Boeing or Airbus know that it's broken, and a code is sent from the manufacturer so that the part is printed within minutes of it breaking. And so the plane now is not down for three weeks or 3 days, it's down for about 30 minutes. This is completely transforming the way we think about supply chains and logistics. There is a lot that is talked about as it relates to how automation and artificial intelligence would affect work. And there are 3 key types of automation that I think are worth understanding and thinking through their implications. The first is robotic process automation. There are no real robots in this. Essentially what it is our ability to integrate data in the presentation layer. So in the past, we would think about integrating data with very large databases on the back end. Today, I can write a bot that goes into Excel, pulls out specific data, links it to unstructured data in Outlook, and links it to other data in Microsoft Word. This is fundamentally transforming a lot of white-collar work. And if you think of all of our jobs, every one of our jobs has routine administrative work. That is what RPA takes on. Let me give you one example. In many banks around the world, a very important job is the credit analyst. This person, let's say you apply for a loan. This person takes your application, pulls up data about you from the bank's records, maybe goes on to the different credit rating agencies to pull your credit file to see if you're a worthwhile risk, may pull data from the government on your tax returns to verify your income, may pull social media data. All of this work is very administrative, time-consuming, very routine. With some banks, this work can be $125,000. It's also work that is extremely error-prone. So the chances of making a mistake and making an incorrect recommendation on credit is very high. It's also work that is very easily automated, because today I can write a bot for that work, and that bot can actually do that same task with 0 errors and 8 to 9 times faster for about $5,000 a year. So you can see the differential between the cost of using someone in a traditional job versus the cost of using automation. RPA is a very mature science. It's growing quickly. We're seeing it in companies all around the world. The second part of automation, which is very exciting, is cognitive automation. This is what is often referred to as AI. And I'll show you an example. Amazon. Let's say I walk into the store, and I've been on this platform for the last 3 months. The algorithm knows I consume milk every 2 weeks. It knows that it has been 10 days since I last bought milk. And it's going to now tell me, did you know you're going to run out of milk in 3 days, and I have now populated your cart? The ability to sell many, many different higher value added services is going to be truly unprecedented. I have 2 teenage children, and they like driving my car. Unfortunately, they're not very good drivers. And so I have had to have that car repaired a number of times. And so let me tell you how it is changing. If you have an accident, you have to call the insurance company. The adjuster comes to you, she looks at the car, she goes back to the office, she types up the claim, and so they have this back and forth, and it takes a long time, and they have the negotiation about what the damage is going to cost to repair. It can take sometimes a week to get this done. Today what happens is everyone has a cell phone, every cell phone has a camera, and so if you have an accident, you take a picture of the damage gets uploaded to whatever your insurance company is. The company knows that you have this vehicle. AI recognizes which bumper it is. It also knows what the supply of aftermarket parts is in your area. It knows what the 3 body shops around you last charged to fix this particular car. And it's able to there is no more negotiation on pricing. It also knows what the contingencies are. So if a right bumper is damaged, it is possible the light is also broken. It's also possible the internal steel beam is damaged. And so it can tell the body shop, if these parts are broken, here is the price we're going to pay. And the third part is what we call social robotics or collaborative robotics. The combination of AI with sensors, so whether it's optical sensors, audio sensors, and the linkage to equipment, so that you've got machines not static, but working in a collaborative fashion with human beings. And so you can see how the entire process has been re-engineered. It also allows insurance companies to now charge on a micro basis. I don't know about China, but in the US, the primary driver of insurance premiums is credit scores, which makes no sense at all, because credit scores only account for 30% of the differential in pricing. But yet, that's the only instrument many insurance companies have. Today, now that I have the data, the company knows what my driving patterns are, they know where I drive, they know the speed at which I was driving, I can develop new products. I can micro-price insurance in a way that we never had before. And this data is giving me new insights. So I'm taking the claims data and I'm using it to determine pricing. I'm using it to transform the process. You're probably asking, well, what happens to the adjuster? His or her job is going from doing the routine work to taking on the non-routine aspects. They are now providing you with a level of care and almost like a concierge service, because if I have an accident or one of my children does, it's a very traumatic thing. Now you've got an agent who has the time and the training to actually express care, share empathy, use emotional intelligence, not doing the routine manual work. So the job itself has changed. And this is a really important thing when we think about work, because in every occupation, there are 3 types of work. There is routine work, which is very easily automatable, whether it's routine cognitive work or routine manual work. There is non-routine work that requires us to exercise innovation, creativity, come up with new ideas. That is a little harder to automate. The thing that is very difficult to automate are the things that are truly human, where we express empathy, where we express care and concern, where we work with others. We apply critical thinking to take insights from one domain and apply them to another. And that's a really important way to think about how AI will change our jobs or our work. To the point about how AI will change work, there is a lot of research out there. Much of it is unfortunately wrong. This is one study that is wrong. This is a study that came out from Oxford University a few years ago, and it predicted that by 2025, 47% of the jobs that existed in the United States in 2010 would be automated. Because, for the reasons that I talked about, a job is made up of many types of activities. What is routine cognitive or manual is what is most easily automated. So until you deconstruct a job and identify those parts which are routine, non-routine, and human interaction, it's virtually impossible to identify what can truly be automated. The study that we think makes a lot more sense is a piece of work done by McKinsey that looks very similar to our research. And what it shows is the types of activities that are most susceptible to automation. And what you can see on the right, the things in blue, are the things that are very routine. Anything that is predictable physical work in a factory, for example, which has been automated for many, many years and will continue to be automated. Data processing work, so the work of taking data from Excel, putting it into PowerPoint and linking it to other data. Data collection, very easily done with sensors. If you think of how you engage with Siri or with whoever your Android assistant might be, the fact that you have sensors and natural language processing are allowing organizations to fundamentally change how data is collected and used. What is on the left of the chart is what is less likely or less susceptible to be automated, and those are things which are truly human. Again, you can't find out how AI or automation is going to affect your work until you take your job and pull it apart and categorize it into these elements. What this is resulting in is a fundamental change in work. In the old days, I would make a decision about, do I build talent, i.e. do I develop people in my company, or do I buy, which means I go hire someone new. Today, we have up to 8 different choices in terms of how leaders think of getting work done. I can build or buy employees in traditional jobs. I could outsource, which is I take the job and I move it to another location or to a third party to do. I could use free agents, which is people on Upwork, people on bj.com, to take on a task by turning a job into a project. I could have an alliance, as we're seeing that with many, many companies around the world. I could use volunteers. We see many consumer goods companies using volunteers on social media to advance their brands. In some cases, these people are paid. In other cases, their influencing power is what is driving their engagement with these companies. We could use robotics, like collaborative robots and social robotics, like I mentioned, or we could use AI. The new skill for our business leaders and for HR functions is to figure out, how do I tap into all of these sources, asking questions about 3 metrics. What is the right speed to capability? So how do I stand up new capabilities, innovation, as quickly as possible? How do I do it at the right cost? I've done this job for 25 years. I still haven't seen an HR budget go up, and I don't expect to. Recognizing that we are used to managing risk when the work is done by employees, how do we take our tools, our methods, our processes, and move them to understanding the risks associated with these other means, and then build that leadership capability to manage work in this seamless fashion? And that's causing a fundamental shift in how we think about organizations and work. We used to think of our organizations as a place where we all came to work in a physical location. Going forward, what we're increasingly seeing is the organization is this virtual ecosystem that orchestrates alliance partners, employees, independent contractors, where the boundaries of space and time no longer exist. It also means that our organization itself is going to change pretty quickly. When you think of our traditional model, we would have all of the functions within the company. Going forward, we might have an ecosystem that orchestrates these functions. As an example, your marketing function probably does a lot of analytics. Today, most of those analytics can be done by an IBM Watson or Google TensorFlow or any one of those AI providers. So now that marketing manager who spends 30% of her time looking at the flow of inventory in different markets, looking at which customers are buying different products, predicting what prices should look like in different parts of the world for different consumer segments, determining what promotions to make, all of that work, that analytical work, can be taken on by Watson. And so it frees that person up to actually take on the higher value-added human tasks, building a relationship with our most important customers, training her team, making them much better marketers, creating that more sustainable platform for marketing, and learning how to use data, not creating the data or analyzing it. The continuums of choice, or the decision-making framework for business leaders, and essentially there are 3 decision points. The first is, what does the work look like, and what are the choices? The second is, what does that mean for the organization? And the third is, what does it mean for the rewards of the people who work in the organization? What you see is where we've been for 125 years. Work is done in jobs. Those jobs are collected at a point in space and time, and employment is the dominant relationship, which is probably true for most of us. As a result, the organization is pretty self-contained, very detached and protective of intellectual property, very rigid in its structure, and the rewards tend to be very consistent. We all get a salary, we all get bonuses, we all get a pension, but the only thing that varies is that the people at the top get a little bit more than the people in the middle or the bottom. Very traditional and collective. The other extreme is where we take those jobs and break them up into tasks. Those tasks are dispersed both inside the company and outside. And as a result, we now have virtual or market relationships. My relationship with the talent platform, the AI vendor, the alliance partner. As a result, the organization is more permeable. Work is flowing in and out. Talent is flowing in and out. The company is much more collaborative. It's more of an ecosystem. And the rewards tend to look very impermanent. The relationship I have with a person on a talent platform like Upwork or TopTal or 10X is based on specifically what that person's market price is. If I were to hire that person, I would put that person into a job structure, and he or she would get paid exactly the same amount as everyone else. So we've gone from being very collective to being very individualized. And the benefit to companies and individuals is that I now get to access talent that might never otherwise think about joining my company. So the last thing I will leave you with before we take some questions is, what does this mean now for progressive HR functions? And there are 5 things that we think are particularly relevant. The first is, as I said at the outset, you can't identify how these alternative sources of work can be utilized until you deconstruct a job. And so understanding how do we, where does it make sense to deconstruct certain jobs? Are we having difficulty finding talent? Or are we having a cost issue where we are paying people for doing a certain type of work for the last 30 or 40 years, their output has stayed the same, but their labor cost has gone up significantly? And again, deconstructing to identify where can we apply one of those 8 alternatives. The second is learning from these talent platforms. What they do is that they are able to seamlessly match skills to tasks. The skills of an independent contractor or a free agent to the tasks that you need done. How do we put that alongside our job architectures so that we are much more agile and nimble in not just matching the whole person to the job, but matching talent we have within the company and outside to emerging types of work without thinking about moving a person or hiring a new person. The third key capability is for HR to take the lead in becoming the stewards of work. HR's legacy has been that we are the stewards of employment, but as companies tap these new means for work, HR has a really powerful role to play in helping business leaders navigate these different sources of work to understand the implications for those 3 metrics, right? Speed to capability, cost, and risk. And the last variable, and this was something that we showcased, was the story of IBM and what IBM is doing to actually not just transform itself, but transform the way it develops its talent, giving that talent complete visibility to what skills are being demanded by its customers, what the gaps are with that talent skill, and then how that talent can be reskilled. Reskilling is going to be absolutely critical. And so how do we as organizations ensure that we are equipping our talent to be able to be as mobile and as marketable as possible so that they continue to be relevant to our business models? And then the last thing is for HR itself to embrace the these digital platforms and AI. We are working with a number of organizations to bring AI to recruiting. We're working to automate our performance management, to take away the routine tasks that consume HR and leaders, and to free leaders up and HR up to do the things that are much more valuable, that employees really appreciate, their development, the conversations, the coaching, as opposed to the mundane things like goal setting and auditing goals, which are easily automated.